And so today I want to share a little bit and talk a little bit more in depth on my newsletter that I sent this last week about the importance of being center focused rather than other focused. So for those who may not have read that yet, I'll put a link in this video when I post it. Just want to share a little summary about that. So the what I understood in my own process of transformation after having left, excuse me, an abusive marriage quite some time ago was that I had lived most of my life being other focused, planning and thinking about other people's emotional state, wondering how I could do my work at work better by overthinking, pre planning, thinking of every eventuality, any potential issue that could come up, trying to fix people around me, people please. Everything was about out there. And when, after leaving my marriage, I found myself in a very fragile state, trying to recover from the abuse and find myself again. I retreated to my center, my core, my intuition, my who I am, and realized that it was a terrain I didn't know that well. I'd had glimpses of it. There'd be some time when I was in meditation or watching a sunset or something like that when I would connect to my own sense of center. But for the most part, it was a pretty unexplored space for me, or at least it had been for about 20 years of my marriage. And so what I started to understand was that I was forced into my center. And then I realized actually it was my peace. It was my um, power, honestly. In all honesty, I think I would call it that. It was my or is my guidance point. It is where I believe God's source exists within each one of us. And when I had spent all of my time being other focused, out there fixing things, solving things, I wasn't actually connecting to my guidance and source that could actually help me make a difference. But what's interesting in that is that the process of becoming center focused, I no longer desired or needed to fix the things outside of me because my house, my home, my center, my core was peace. I had been hoping that peace was out there. So then, of course, I needed to fix it. I needed to solve it. I needed to resolve it. I needed to make sure that you were in a good mood because otherwise I didn't know how to handle that. I needed to make sure that I overachieved at work so that, I would stave off any issues. But when I found myself and my center, I stopped needing to do that anymore. I stopped needing or craving to create the world around me, as in outside of me, as being safe, and rather found my own center. Now, for a bit of time, I retreated to that center. I needed to. And there have been various times post various traumas in my life or hard times where I retreat there and kind of hole up, I kind of hermit. But that is valuable. There's nothing wrong with that time period. And what I found is that when I hole up, when I hermit, when I focus, when I get back to my center or stay in my center because it's the only safe place I can find in that moment, over time, my center gets stronger and the force field of the energy of my center extends out into the other, into outside of me. And I notice that I kind of carry that with me. I bring peace wherever I am. And many of us might have experienced that where we'll meet somebody and just in their presence, we go, oh, I feel like I can breathe, or I feel like I can be myself, or there's something about them that just brings that feeling. And I found that there are spaces and places where I've been able to do that as well. And it's because I've retreated into my center, made it stronger, made myself stronger, and then I live in it. It's kind of like a mobile home, for lack of a better word. I walk around the world in the middle of my center. So then I'm never really leaving home. I'm not going anywhere, but I am bringing the safety of being connected to the divine source, my own intuition with me wherever I go. So, one of the things that I also found about that is that not only did I do I bring that elsewhere, and I no longer have a desire to fix the things outside of me. I have dropped the desire to be perfect. And that was another post from this last week on Substack as well about moving beyond perfectionism. And I have dropped being passive aggressive, which was the way I knew to communicate, somewhat due to growing up family, somewhat due to having to try to work around a narcissist in my first marriage. And also part of it, in all honesty, culturally, being a Midwesterner, sometimes that is how we communicate. And so I've dropped a lot of that, um, in terms of trying to fix others, operating or communicating passive aggressively, just speaking out what it is that I want to say, learning how to emotionally regulate myself, not looking for, is the person next to me or my partner in a good mood? Okay, therefore, then I can be in a good mood. Or they're not, therefore, I have to be on edge. Um, Living within my own emotional regulation and not relying on others to do that. And then I've also dropped the guilt of inconveniencing other people. So when I would find that my center would tell me, not to do a thing. For instance, let's say I made a plan with a friend to do dinner. And then a couple hours later, I was just hearing very clearly from my intuition that I wasn't supposed to go. I was supposed to do something different. I needed to rest, whatever it would be. At first, it would be very difficult for me to share my center focused decision with that person and not feel guilty about it. So at first, when I was first learning about this, at first I just wouldn't tell them. I would just say, "Well, I guess it's not gonna hurt anything. I might as well just still go to the dinner." But later I would, realize that maybe it drained me or something, and I said, "Oh, no, next time I really need to say something." And so I learned over time, excuse me, to share that with them. And at first I would still feel guilty. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I made the plans, etc." Now with the people that I am in my inner circle that I spend time with, that I, set up dinners with or whatever, we all have an understanding that we're all trying to work from our center. And that if things change, we let the other person know. And I swear, 95% of the time, when I say, I'm just not feeling dinner tonight, or a catch up call, or I know we were supposed to talk, or whatever, and they'll go, "Oh, thank God, me either." Most of the time, they're also feeling that same energy of like, "No, this isn't the right time," or, "It's been a long day for both of us," or whatever, without knowing that, right? And so I've just gotten to the point now where I just say it. I expect probably it's going to align, but either way, of course, I'm, very clear, and, I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm not taking my decisions as priority over someone else, but I am stating my needs. I am saying, this isn't working for me right now. And then I'll be in consultation with the person who says, yeah, I hear that. And I really had a tough day. Could we connect for half of the time we were going to? And if I'm still hearing no, then it's still a no. But if it's, yeah, that would actually work. Let's do that. Then we can have that conversation. Whereas in the past, I would have internalized or squished any of my own needs because either I believe theirs, because I was trying to manage them, was taking precedence, or that it was, I believed it would inconvenience them, so I wouldn't even ever bring it up. I squashed most of it. So moving into that place has been super important. Now, I think before I kind of go on more about how this works in the real world, a major question I could imagine that people might have would be, well, isn't being center focused selfish. Now, when I was starting to understand this feeling of checking in with myself first, and I started sharing it with some of my coaching clients. I was very particular about the language because I didn't want to say, you need to be self focused, right? Or you need to be selfish because it's neither of those things. But if we speak of it with brand new language of it being center focused, we can understand that. Okay, I'm supposed to be focused on my own center first. Then I can understand that. But there's a lot of conditioning that tells us that anything where we check with ourselves first is going to fundamentally be selfish. It's just what we've learned. We've maybe learned that from our culture. We maybe learned that as women, though men also get this message as well, just in different ways. It shows up in different ways for them. Every one of us has been told that the worst thing we can be is selfish. So we really, really, most of us are shying away and worried that somehow we're going to do something and either we'll be perceived as being selfish by others or we will actually in actuality be selfish, which is the definition of that would be putting yourself above others at all costs. For me, center focused is consulting yourself first before living and working in community. So it is not in spite of or always ahead of other people, but it is the most powerful way we can show up in community. So when I was first learning about this, I thought, oh gosh, this is going to, my daughter or others around me are going to feel left out of my process. I don't know if you can hear it, but there is a fire truck. So I'm going to. Okay. Sorry, just so that you can hopefully hear me. Um, so as I was unlearning my definitions of selfishness and learning a replacement of being center focused, I began to understand how freeing it was for those around me and when I was around other people who were center focused. So, for example, we've all been through this situation where we, connect with a friend and we decide, hey, let's go have dinner. And it's spur of the moment, so there's no plans made. And you go, where do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go eat? I don't know. Where do you want to go eat? And the back and forth of neither of you having a need or a desire makes the decision about what to eat really difficult. Now, there are some of us who take that. I'm going to take this now as a metaphor, right? This idea of like, I don't know, whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want, to a larger sphere. And that no matter what's happening, if my knee jerk reaction or gut reaction or my go to is going to be saying, whatever you want, the other person who's there, who truly wants to support me and love me, won't know how it is to do that because I'm always saying, whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want. Versus if we're around somebody who, when we say, where do you want to eat? And they go, I am feeling like Mexican today. What about you? Now remember, this is then a conversation. Selfish would be, I want Mexican. We're going to go to Mexican. I don't care what you say, right? Center focused is, I'm thinking Mexican. What about you? So I checked in with my center first. Of course, it's like a small example, but you can take this larger. I checked in with myself first and said, my taste buds would really love some Mexican today. What about you? And if the other person then, again, being center focused, either says, I don't have a preference after I've checked in with myself, or I have a preference of Thai, then you guys can consult about, well, let's do this or let's do that. But if I am always in the relationship saying, whatever you want, one, my needs are never going to get met. And two, they'll never know I actually like Mexican because I'm never going to say it. So what about if it's my birthday? how will they even know how they can love me and bring me to a place that they know absolutely I'm going to enjoy? Because I've stated a couple different times that I like Mexican food. Again, the analogy is trite, it's basic. But if you take that and extrapolate it much to much more complicated decisions and conversations and consultations, you can see where when each of us said what we wanted, we could actually begin discussing. We could actually begin deciding. But when it stayed in the matter of, I don't know, what do you want? Back and forth, there wasn't actually a conversation. And there was no way to actually make a decision except by default, which was, well, that place is around the corner we always go to. And you'd go and maybe it was okay, but it wasn't what either of you guys were craving. And I think that's an actually important word that just came to mind for that, is that being center focused is also being so connected with what we crave. And I mean that in terms of like, I crave alone time right now. I'm really craving a nap. And allowing ourselves to use language like that that says, I am allowed to want these things. I am allowed to. And in fact, not only allowed to, but the universe, God's source, really wants to know what we crave so that they can put that in our path. They can make that happen in our world for us. And when we know we have a craving and then all of a sudden that thing walks into our life, we'll notice it because we'll go, oh my God, I was just talking about that. I'm just praying about that. I just mentioned that to a friend. That's insane that that just showed up. But if we're like, whatever life wants to bring us and something nice happens to come along, we're like, that's great. But we don't like marvel at what's come our way. So being center focused is also coming into the power of being a human being who can manifest what it is we want in this reality. And for God, creator, universe, please insert whatever phrase works for you or none at all, can bring something into our world. They'll know better what to bring, right? It's like going to a restaurant and saying, I'm just here, just get me whatever you want to get me, instead of saying, I want the blah, 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 and I'd like it to be, cooked this way. And then the chef can make it happen and put it in front of us. And it's amazing, right? So I think there's a couple different pieces that come into play about why this is all important. And I think I'd like to close in the next couple minutes with some thinking behind how to move into being center focused, if this is brand new. One is just sit with the idea for a while. Beyond anything, make sure it resonates with you. Make sure it makes sense to your head, to your heart, to your soul. It feels good in your body when you contemplate it. So always, always do that, no matter what, wherever you're getting any information, whether there's this live, whether it's, the news or a friend or a coach or a therapist or a book you're reading, whatever it is, always check in first if it makes sense. So that's going to be the first thing. Then my path on this, and I imagine yours would be the same, would be sitting with it and digesting the ideas behind it and noticing what questions or reservations come to mind. And this is only after you've decided that you'd like to incorporate this into your world, right? And you're like, I just keep thinking, I keep hearing the word, oh, that's so selfish. Okay, what voice in me is telling me that? Right? Let's have a conversation with that voice. I want to hear more about what they're saying. Or let me, reach out or read the article again or find out more about this center focus thing because I feel like it works and then I get stuck at this spot. So continuing to kind of look at that. The other is, I think, unlearning our definitions of the things that might be getting in the way. Hearing the word selfish. Well, interrogate. What does that word actually mean? Why would this be that? Who has told me that I can't be selfish, or who has defined selfishness for me? Do I agree with that? What am I taking with me and what am I letting go of? And then as you continue that process and you say, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start doing it with, again, maybe the smallest of examples, deciding where you're going to eat with a friend of yours, right? Normally you're always saying, you tell, whatever you want, whatever you want. setting that intention. Okay, I'm going to start doing this in this one particular part of my life. It could be, meals. It could be something at work. It could be something in your partnership. It could be something with your kids. Choosing one thing, setting an intention, and then just giving yourself space to observe where you don't do the center focused way. Just like see it. What do you tend to say? How do you say it? What's the impact? Just like observe. Take as much time as you'd like to observe how you do it now so that you understand how to dismantle it later. So just notice where it shows up. Does it show up with everyone or just certain people? How does it happen? What am I feeling before I say, no, whatever you want, whatever you want? And then after you're doing the observing without judgment, this is super important. Do not judge yourself. Oh, there I am doing that thing again. This is so bad. Nope. Just notice it. I noticed it here. Like an anthropologist, something somewhat a little bit detached, a bit of an observer going, oh, that's interesting. This is what happens. Do not judge yourself. Once you're gone through the observation stage and you have stopped or are working on not judging yourself, that's a very hard thing for most of us, then walk through one of the examples and write through or think through what you could have said. So you're kind of giving yourself a dry run. You're not trying to, in real life, being like, okay, I'm going to change everything all at once. So give yourself, even write it down. In that situation, next time, what I will do is X, right? So you're not like, I should have done this differently. No shoulds, no judgment, but just next time through, I want to try this language or this action or this decision. Let me try that. And then probably what will happen, I've noticed this with my own self, is I'll get to a situation, I'll observe it and say, ooh, here's one coming. And then the first couple times, I may or may not actually do the thing I said I was going to do, but that's okay. No judgment. But eventually we will try to do that or replace it with what you've said. Or sometimes I've noticed that I will be halfway through and say, you know what? I know I was about to say that it doesn't matter where we eat, but actually I'm in the really in the mood for X, right? So sometimes I'll catch myself in the middle, right? Over time, I'll be about to speak and then pause, get back to my center and say it the way that I wanted to say it. And then I'll notice over time that I no longer have to catch myself. It now has just become a habit, or at least the habit before it is like not so much catching as much as like, oh, here comes a decision. Great, center focus. Let me take a note. Someone's going to ask me what I want, right? And then I will respond from there. And then over time, again, all of this is over time, all of this is without judgment, but each of these steps is useful no matter what you're trying to change or improve. Finally, I will notice that at some point, I no longer even have the desire to do anything that isn't center focused. It has now become reflex. But that's after a long, like all the steps that I just mentioned, and all of it being without judgment, and none of it being flagellating myself later about, I can't believe I did that thing again. And look at how, whatever it is. So taking all of those pieces, I think will help with this implementing being center focused if this is something that resonates with you. Check with your center first, see if it feels right, put it into meditation, put it into, does it logically make sense? Feel what it feels like in your body when you think of it or when you imagine doing it. Check your emotions that are coming up with it. And then only then decide, I'm going to start implementing this in my life. So I am super excited about being able to share everything that I've shared. I appreciate those who have been able to join me today. I see a few people and I'm so glad to see you guys. I think it feels like this right timing from my center that I'll close for today, but I will be posting this, assuming this is my first Substack live. So assuming that once I say end, that it'll give me an option to do that and I can save it. I'll send a link, you guys will know where to put it. And really excited to have those who are able to join live as well as those who will watch and participate in the future. And feel free that when this is posted to put messages, questions. I'll be monitoring, responding back. And also let me know if it's a topic you want me to dig in, further as well. That being said, I do plan to have lives every Sunday, um, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm in the Central Time Zone, so 5 p.m. Central, and I guess that would be 4 Mountain, 3 Pacific. I think I did that math correct in my head just now. So join me anytime. I just love having these conversations, and you can join me live or you can join the videos later. Each week I plan to do the topic on the newsletter that I would have just sent out the week before. But I'm also open for any topics that any of you guys would like me to talk more about. So really appreciate everyone, your time, your love, your support, and love you all very, very dearly.